This is World News Program coming to you live from Algiers. I'm Maritime and these are your headlines. As wildfires spread, Algeria sets up a national monitoring and support task force. Civil Protection says it has extinguished more than 1,600 fires since the start of the heatwave, while President Tebboune praises the heroic efforts of civil protection personnel. Coming up next, the United States and Iran exchange strikes. Washington targets dozens of Iranian military sites. Tehran says it struck U.S. bases in Kuwait and Jordan, and President Trump warns Iran will be held responsible for any Houthi attack. And thousands of Zionist settlers storm Al-Aqsa Mosque under the protection of occupation forces. Warnings grow over plans to desecrate the holy site, while 2 Palestinians are killed by occupation forces following a resistance operation in Nablus. Welcome again. A national monitoring and support task force has been established under Algeria's Prime Minister's office to coordinate the country's response to the ongoing wildfires. Created on the instructions of President Abdelmajid Tebboune, the task force will operate around the clock, bringing together all relevant ministries and agencies to oversee firefighting operations, coordinate relief efforts, and support affected families. Algeria's Civil Protection says it has recorded 1,675 fires since the start of the current heat wave, with 1,612 already brought under control. Firefighters continue battling 63 active fires across several provinces. Speaking to All24 News on Wednesday, Civil Protection's Deputy Director of Operations, Lieutenant Colonel Karim Habbi, said emergency crews remain fully deployed.
Since the first weather bulletins warnings of high temperatures and the outbreak of several fires, the General Directorate of Civil Protection has placed all personnel on standby in the provinces threatened by these fires. These personnel have been working day and night for the past 15 days, while continuing to carry out their regular daily emergency response duties, as those operations have not ceased. The Crisis Management Operations Center was also activated and has been overseen by the Director General of Civil Protection. In addition, all necessary human and material resources have been mobilized. More than 20,000 civil protection personnel, including firefighters and officers, have been deployed to combat forest fires, while other personnel have continued handling routine emergency interventions. Furthermore, more than 700 fire trucks have been deployed for these operations.
In the same context, Habbi added that Civil Protection has reinforced personnel in the provinces most at risk of wildfires, while maintaining daily emergency and rescue services. Let's have a listen.
All available resources have been mobilized, including those of the Civil Protection, as well as the resources of the People's National Army. The Civil Protection has deployed 12 firefighting aircraft, and the People's National Army has also deployed all of its aerial resources for firefighting operations. In addition, the Forest Rangers have contributed all their available human and material resources. Provincial authorities have also taken part, and citizens have contributed to the firefighting efforts as well.
As firefighting operations continue across several Algerian provinces, a central operations room is working around the clock to coordinate response efforts and monitor developments on the ground in real time. More details with Yasin Irakti.
Firefighting operations are ongoing across several Algerian provinces as authorities battle wildfires fueled by extreme heat and strong winds. Civil protection teams supported by the People's National Army, forestry services and local volunteers are mobilized to contain the flames and protect residents and properties.
The fire has spread over a large area of the forest, and we are working to contain it and prevent it from spreading to other areas by using all available resources.
The situation is very difficult due to the strong winds, which are complicating firefighting operations. We're intervening wherever conditions allow. and we're working to stop the fire from spreading further before it expands while making use of all available resources.
Authorities report interventions in 24 provinces involving more than 90,000 personnel, over 700 firefighting vehicles, 12 water-bombing aircraft and 6 helicopters. The hardest hit areas include Skikda province, El Taref, Annaba and Gelma, where efforts are focused on protecting communities, carrying out preventive evacuations and assessing damage. Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune has called for maximum protection of citizens and stronger awareness campaigns to prevent further outbreaks.
The President of the Republic has instructed us to travel to Annaba province and provide full support to the residents. He has also ordered local authorities to carry out census operations so that those affected can be compensated.
Algeria is among several Mediterranean countries facing severe wildfires this summer, with France, Spain, Portugal and Greece also affected by widespread blazes amid rising temperatures in the Mediterranean basin.
Acting on the instructions of President Abdelmajid Tebboune, Interior Minister Saïd Sayoud traveled on Thursday to Tlemcen, accompanied by senior government officials, to offer condolences and support to the family of a victim killed in the forest fires. The ministerial delegation later visited Annaba to extend condolences to other families affected by the wildfires, where they were received by local security and military authorities. President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune on Wednesday praised the heroic efforts of Algeria's civil protection personnel as they continue battling wildfires across the country. In a message of gratitude, he commended civil protection teams, the People's National Army, local authorities and volunteers for their tireless work to save lives, protect forests and property, and contain the fires, expressing the nation's appreciation for their dedication and sacrifice. France's National Weather Service says 16-day heat wave that swept across the country is the third longest ever recorded, matching the duration of the heat waves of August 2003, summer 2018 and 2025. In a statement on Thursday, the agency said it is the third heat wave of 2026 in less than 2 months. Between July 4th and July 19th, France experienced its 2 longest heat waves since records began in 1947. Spanish authorities have also issued exceptional risk warnings for several regions as an intense heat wave continues to grip the country. Spain's National Weather Agency said temperatures have exceeded 42 degrees Celsius in inland areas along the southern coast near Valencia and Alicante, while parts of Vega del Segura and the Guadalentine Valley, Lorca and Aguilas have recorded 44 degrees Celsius or higher. Spain's health ministry has urged the public to take precautions to protect themselves from the extreme heat. And turning now to the Middle East, the U.S. military announced on Thursday that it had completed its latest round of strikes against Iran, carried out under the direction of President Donald Trump for the 12th consecutive night. The operation lasted approximately 5 hours, and according to a statement from U.S. Central Command, the strikes targeted Iranian military assets, including naval capabilities, missile and drone storage facilities, coastal surveillance sites, and air defense systems. CENTCOM added that U.S. forces have struck dozens of Iranian military sites throughout July, while continuing to enforce the naval blockade on Iran.
U.S. forces struck Iranian military targets including maritime capabilities, missile and drone storage facilities, coastal surveillance sites, and air defense assets. The strikes further degrade Iran's ability to attack civilian mariners and commercial vessels.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Thursday that Iran is not prepared to reach an agreement, warning that Tehran will continue to pay a growing price if it maintains its current course. Rubio said the cost to Iran would increase with each passing night until it returns to the negotiating table, reiterating that the US remains committed to preventing Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon.
Iran is begging us, okay, both directly and indirectly, let's do a deal, let's talk. Iran is begging every day. The problem with Iran is every time they make a deal, the people that are in charge there, they either break it or they want to change it. So it looks like they're not ready to make a deal. So they're going to continue to pay a price. And every night the price gets higher and higher and higher. And that's what's happening now. And until maybe in a few days, they'll be ready to make a deal once they realize that this is not a winning proposition for them. And that's what the president is outlining. The idea that this is going to continue, it's not going to continue this way. The price will continue to get higher every single night until they come to their senses.
Rubio further repeated his accusation that Iran is backing the Houthis, saying Washington expects maritime attacks in the region to cease.
You know, the Houthis largely were smart and stayed out of all this throughout the conflict, but they now apparently have gotten themselves suckered into this, going after Saudi Arabia and their ships. And by the way, that's, you know, I was reading reports a few hours ago that there was actually a Saudi fuel ship that's flagged Chinese. It's a Chinese ship. Are they going to blow up the Chinese ship? And this becomes a problem for China. This will become a problem for the whole world. But I hope that will de-escalate, because I think the Houthis, frankly, got snookered into this thing by the Iranians.
And Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said Iran would respond firmly and decisively to any act of aggression. Responding to President Trump's recent threats to strike Iran's infrastructure, Araghchi said in a post on X that Iran's defense doctrine is clear and that any attack on the country would be met with a strong and decisive response.
Our defensive doctrine is clear: eye for an eye. Any aggression against Iran, including targeting our infrastructure, will be met with a firm, strong, and decisive response. Any party that participates in or supports, in any way whatsoever, in such aggression will be considered a target.
Iran has condemned calls to target bridges and power stations, saying such attacks are illegal and constitute war crimes under international humanitarian law. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghai said on Thursday that nothing can justify the commission of war crimes, adding that following orders from higher authorities does not absolve those responsible of criminal liability, nor does such responsibility expire over time. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps said the entrance and exit of the Strait of Hormuz are fully identified and under its control, warning vessels against using alternative routes through the strategic waterway. In a statement posted by the IRGC Navy on its official social media account, the force said those alternative routes are unsafe and hazardous, warning that their use could lead to serious and irreversible consequences.
The entrance and exit to the Strait of Hormuz are clearly defined and are under our complete control. Alternative routes are unsafe and dangerous, and we warn against their use, as this will have grave consequences.
He said they targeted 2 Saudi oil tankers in the Red Sea with missiles and drones following their declaration of a maritime blockade against Saudi Arabia amid renewed U.S.-Iran tensions. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Sariyah said the tankers were targeted for violating the group's ban on maritime traffic in the Red Sea.
نفذت القوات المسلحة اليمنية.
The Yemeni armed forces carried out qualitative military operation targeting 2 Saudi oil tankers that violated the ban issued by the armed forces in the Red Sea. One is named in Syria and the other Layla, and this was conducted using a number of ballistic and cruise missiles, as well as drones.
U.S. President Donald Trump said the United States will hold Iran responsible for any further attacks carried out by the Houthis, stressing that Washington considers the group to be acting as Tehran's proxy. In a post on Truth Social on Thursday, Trump said the Houthis had fired on 2 Saudi oil tankers the previous night and warned that both Iran and the Houthis would face a major military response if such attacks were repeated.
A year ago, the United States of America attacked very powerfully the Houthis for their interference with commerce and trade by shooting at ships. Since that time, and during our conflict with Iran, they have acted very responsibly. Unfortunately, now they're starting up again, shooting at 2 Saudi Arabian ships last night. Please let this truth serve to represent that if they do this again, the US will hold Iran responsible, in that the Houthis are a surrogate and or proxy of Iran, and major military punishment will be inflicted upon Iran and, of course, the Houthis themselves.
Algeria has strongly condemned the attack on a Saudi vessel in the Red Sea, calling it a blatant violation of international law on freedom of navigation and a direct threat to regional security and stability. In a statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reaffirmed Algeria's full solidarity with Saudi Arabia, called for an immediate end to such attacks because of their impact on international trade and global energy supplies, and urged the escalation to prevent further tensions in the Middle East.
Algeria expresses a strong condemnation of the attack on a Saudi vessel while it was sailing in the Red Sea, in a flagrant violation of the principles of international law relating to freedom of maritime navigation in international waterways and a direct threat to the security and stability of the region as a whole. Algeria reaffirms its full solidarity with the sisterly kingdom of Saudi Arabia following this attack and stresses the need for an immediate halt to such assaults, which jeopardize the safety of international trade and the uninterrupted flow of global energy supplies. Algeria calls for de-escalation and urges all parties to avoid any actions that could further intensify tensions in the Middle East.
And more than 2,300 Zionist settlers, led by far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound on Thursday under the protection of Zionist forces. According to the Islamic Waqf Department in occupied Al-Quds, the settlers entered the compound during commemorations of what is known as Tisha B'Av, carrying out provocative tours, dances, and Talmudic rituals. The Waqf also reported attacks by settlers on Palestinians in Al-Quds Old City during the large-scale incursion. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry condemned what it described as the largest settler incursion into Al-Aqsa in months, saying that more than 3,222 settlers entered the mosque compound. The ministry warned of Israeli plans to expand Talmudic rituals at the site and tightening restrictions on Muslim worshippers, calling on the international community to take concrete action beyond statements of condemnation. And 2 Palestinians were killed and 2 others wounded after Israeli occupation forces opened fire in the town of Beit Furik, east of Nablus, following what Israeli authorities described as a Palestinian attack. According to the Palestinian news agency Wafa, Israeli forces continued their operation in the town, sealing all entrances and deploying large numbers of troops and settlers across the area. Now to Eastern Europe, Russian strikes killed 3 people and injured 19 others, including a child, in Ukraine's eastern Dnipropetrovsk region on Thursday. Regional authorities said the attacks damaged a food processing facility and sparked a fire at the site. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Thursday that he held a good and candid conversation with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, reaffirming Washington's readiness to play a constructive role in ending the war in Ukraine. Speaking to reporters on the sidelines of the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Manila, Rubio said the United States is prepared to help bring an end to what he described or called a senseless war, but did not disclose details of his talks with Lavrov. And the Kremlin said on Thursday it remains cautious about the prospects for a rapid settlement of the war in Ukraine following the meeting between Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio in Manila. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said contacts between Moscow and Washington are continuing and described that as a positive development. And Ambassador Ammar bin Jamal, Algeria's permanent representative to the UN in New York, was elected by consensus on Thursday as president of the UN Economic and Social Council for the 2027 session. The election, which reflects the confidence of UN member states, was particularly backed by the African group, which nominated him. It also recognizes Algeria's sustained diplomatic efforts in support of multilateralism and international cooperation under President Abdelmajid Tebboune. In a statement delivered following his election, the Algerian ambassador affirmed that this election constitutes a mark of confidence in Algeria as much as it represents a responsibility he intends to undertake with determination.
The trust and confidence placed in Algeria and in my humble person by the African group and by all members is deeply appreciated. The trust reflects Algeria's steadfast commitment under the leadership and guidance of His Excellency Abdelmajid Tebboune, President of the Republic, to multilateralism and to the promotion of international cooperation and solidarity. It is also a responsibility, and I intend to carry resolutely throughout my tenure. With your support and your dedication, we will work together to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
Ammar bin Jamal also called for stronger multilateralism and greater international cooperation, stressing that the time has come to move from commitments to concrete action.
The election of the Vice President, the financing gap for developing countries continue and is estimated at $4 trillion US dollar per year. Next year, we will witness the last SDG summit before the 2030 deadline. This is a critical juncture. We must take full use of all tools at our disposal to put the SDGs back on track. This will require genuine multilateralism and also a stronger international cooperation and solidarity. It is in this spirit that the Algerian presidency of ECOSOC has set 3 mutually reinforcing priorities for this session.
Ambassador Ammar bin Jamal, Algeria's UN permanent representative and newly elected ECOSOC president, announced 3 key priorities for the 2027 session: promoting inclusiveness through meaningful participation of all member states and stakeholders, accelerating SDG progress, focusing on poverty reduction, education, innovation and digital transformation, and strengthening ECOSOC's role by supporting UN reform and the upcoming review of its subsidiary bodies. Bin Jamal stated these priorities reflect Algeria's commitment to a more effective council as the 2030 SDG deadline approaches.
The election of the
And Venezuelan authorities announced Thursday that the death toll from last month's 2 devastating earthquakes has risen to 5,398, with 16,740 injured, according to local media citing National Assembly President Jorge Rodriguez. Fatalities increased by 52 since the last update. He added that over 60,000 people, including 30,000 volunteers, are working in affected areas, while distribution of humanitarian aid and clean drinking water to survivors continues uninterrupted. The end of our newscast. Thanks for watching and have a great night.